The observation deck of the Galactic Council station hummed with quiet efficiency, as it always did. But today, something different stirred in the recycled air. Commander Vex'thil of the Croatian Defense Corps stood at attention, his forearms crossed in what his species considered a posture of extreme skepticism. Before him, projected in shimmering holographic detail, was the strangest proposal he had received in his 40 cycles of military service. "You want us to protect a human infant?" His translator struggled with the concept, as if the words themselves made no logical sense when placed together. Ambassador Felnara, a Sistian diplomat whose silver scales caught the light like polished armor, nodded slowly. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that indicated she was entirely serious. Not just any human infant. This particular child is the daughter of Dr. Lyra Vance, humanity's lead xenobiologist. She is currently stationed at Research Outpost Meridian, studying the behavioral patterns of apex predators on the frontier world designated as Tempest 9. Vex'thil's mandibles clicked together, producing a sound like dice rattling in a cup. And why exactly would a researcher bring a vulnerable offspring to a death world? Even by human standards, this seems remarkably foolish. Because, Felnara continued, her voice taking on that patient tone usually reserved for explaining basic physics to first-year cadets. Dr. Vance is a single parent. The child's father died in the mining accident on Kepler Station 3 rotations ago. The doctor had 2 choices: abandon her research or bring her daughter along. She chose option 2. The commander's primary eyes narrowed while his secondary ones reviewed the mission parameters scrolling across his neural interface. And the child's age? 4 standard years. A ripple of shocked chittering ran through the assembled security team. Even by the standards of species that protected their young with religious fervor, 4 years was absurdly young. Most sapient races did not even allow their offspring outside controlled environments until they reached at least 10% of their adult life expectancy. For humans, with their brief, bright lives, this child should have been nowhere near a research station on a hostile world. Vex'thil pulled up the planetary data with a thought. Tempest 9. Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmosphere breathable but harsh. Native megafauna that made most species' nightmares look like pleasant daydreams. The planet hosted 43 different apex predators, any one of which could tear through standard battle armor like wet paper. "What protection does the child currently have?" he asked, though part of him already dreaded the answer. Felnara's expression, as much as he could read Sistian body language, suggested amusement. "Dr. Vance insists that her daughter, Eva, is adequately protected by her companion animal." "A companion animal?" Vex'thil's voice was flat. "On a world where the smallest predator is the size of a transport shuttle." "Yes." The ambassador pulled up another hologram. "The humans call it a honey badger." The security team leaned forward collectively, studying the creature displayed before them. It was small. Absurdly, laughably small. Perhaps 30 kilograms at most, with short legs, a flat head, and a coat of gray and black fur that looked like someone had haphazardly spray-painted the animal and given up halfway through. Lieutenant Kresh, Vex'thil's second-in-command, made a sound that in Croatian culture was roughly equivalent to a human snort. This is supposed to protect a human child? I have seen more intimidating lunch options." "Actually," Felnara said, and there was definitely amusement in her voice now, "I would suggest you review the attached behavioral data before drawing conclusions." Vex'thil pulled up the files, started reading, then stopped, scrolled back, read again. His translator kept insisting it was functioning properly, but the words it was producing could not possibly be correct. "This says the creature once fought off 6 lions to steal their kill." "Correct. It also says they are known to attack Cape Buffalo, which are, according to this data, 800 times their mass." "Also correct. And there is a documented case of one surviving being bitten by a puff adder, one of Earth's most venomous snakes, and after being temporarily paralyzed, waking up and eating the snake." The humans have a saying, Felnara said. Honey badger don't care. It is, I believe, their highest compliment regarding fearlessness. Kresh was still studying the hologram, his skepticism radiating like heat from a plasma core. It is still just an animal, a small animal. We are trained warriors. The council is paying for elite protection, and they already have, what? A glorified pet. The council is paying for elite protection, Vex'thil corrected, because 3 pirate groups and 1 hostile faction have shown interest in Dr. Vance's research. Her work on predator behavior could revolutionize hunting tactics, security protocols, and military strategy across a dozen sectors. She is a high-value target, and that makes her daughter a vulnerability. He closed the files with a thought and straightened his armor. We leave in 6 hours. Pack for extended deployment, and someone please find me everything we can about Earth animals that punch above their weight class. If this mission is as ridiculous as it sounds, I want to at least understand what we are walking into. 5 days later, Vex'thil stood in the prefabricated research station on Tempest 9 and reconsidered every life choice that had led him to this moment. The station was actually impressive, built to withstand the planet's violent weather patterns and regular megafauna attacks. Reinforced walls, energy shields, automated defense turrets. All good, all professional, all exactly what he expected from a frontier research post. What he had not expected was the child. Eva Vance sat cross-legged on the floor of the common area, surrounded by holographic projections of local predators. She was narrating their behavior patterns to herself in that particular way children did when they believed no one was listening but secretly hoped someone was. And this one is a ridge stalker, she was saying, her small fingers manipulating the hologram to make the creature rotate. They hunt in packs of 7, but Mama says they are not really pack animals. They are just tolerating each other for better hunting odds. Like when the big kids let me play with them because I can fit in small spaces. Vex'thil found himself doing rapid calculations. The child was small even by human standards. Fragile. Her bones were probably hollow or close to it, and her skin was so thin he could see the blood vessels beneath. She had no natural armor, no claws, no defensive capabilities whatsoever, and next to her, sprawled on its side like it owned the entire station, was the honey badger. The creature looked even less impressive in person. Its eyes were small and dark. Its posture suggested profound disinterest in everything around it, and when Kresh approached for a closer look, it did not even bother to raise its head. It just opened one eye, made a sound that was somehow both a growl and a dismissive grunt, and went back to sleep. That, Kresh said quietly, is the mighty protector? That's Recker, Eva said brightly, apparently possessing the superhuman hearing all children seem to develop when adults were discussing them. He's my best friend. Mama says he chose me when I was a baby because I pulled his tail and he thought it was funny instead of getting mad. It allowed a human infant to pull its tail. Vex'thil asked, genuinely curious now despite himself. Oh sure, Recker likes me. He doesn't like most people though. Mama says he has what she calls discerning taste, which I think means he is picky. Dr. Lyra Vance emerged from the research lab, and Vex'thil immediately understood why the council had assigned them to protect her. The woman moved with the efficient confidence of someone who had stared down danger and found it wanting. She was not large, even by human standards, but there was something in her eyes that reminded him of veteran soldiers. Commander Vex'thil, I presume? She extended her hand in the human greeting gesture, and he awkwardly manipulated one of his own appendages to reciprocate. Thank you for coming. I know this must seem like an unusual assignment. That is one way to describe it, Doctor. I have reviewed your research. It is impressive. But I must ask, why bring your daughter to such a dangerous location? Lyra's expression softened as she glanced at Eva, who had returned to her holographic studies with the absolute focus only children could manage. Because the alternative was leaving her in a facility where she would be safe but miserable. Eva's father died 6 months ago. I am all she has left, and I refuse to become a ghost in her life just because my work is dangerous. And the animal? The, honey badger? At the mention of his name, Recker's head came up. For the first time, Vex'thil saw the creature truly alert, and something in his combat-trained mind whispered a warning. The honey badger's eyes were intelligent, not animal intelligent. Something else, something that weighed and measured and calculated. Recker came from a conservation program on Earth, Lyra explained. They bred him in captivity, but he was too aggressive for the program. I took him as part of my research on bonding behaviors between humans and Earth predators. He and Eva formed an attachment when she was 18 months old. I have never seen anything like it. Attachment? Kresh asked. It is an animal, Doctor. Surely you mean it tolerates her. Lyra's smile was small and knowing. Why don't you try to get between them and find out? It was a challenge, and everyone in the room knew it. Kresh looked at Vex'thil, who made a small gesture that meant proceed with caution. The lieutenant approached Eva slowly, hands visible and empty, making soft clicking noises that usually work to calm aggressive species. Recker stood up. The transformation was instant and absolute. One moment, he was a lazy, disinterested animal. The next, he was coiled tension wrapped in fur. His lips pulled back to reveal teeth that seemed too large for his head. A sound emerged from his throat that Vex'thil's translator could not process, something between a roar and a chainsaw starting up. Kresh froze. He was a trained warrior. He had fought in the border conflicts. He had stared down charging war beasts and held his ground. But something about that sound, that absolute promise of violence, made his combat instincts scream danger. Recker, friend, Eva said calmly, not even looking up from her holograms. The honey badger's demeanor shifted instantly. The snarl vanished. The tension evaporated. He looked at Kresh with what could only be described as contempt, made that dismissive grunting sound again, and walked over to Eva. He climbed into her lap, which seemed physically impossible given their relative sizes, and settled in like a living, breathing security blanket. Eva scratched behind his ears. He gets protective, she explained matter-of-factly. Mama says it is because his ancestors survived by being mean enough that nothing wanted to fight them twice. Vex'thil watched his second-in-command try to recover his dignity. I see. Doctor, how do you manage with the local predators? My briefing indicated this planet hosts numerous species that would view a human child as easy prey. Oh, they do, Lyra said. Or they did. We had 3 incidents in the first week. Recker handled them. Handled them how? Come with me. I will show you the recordings. The command center's holographic playbacks. System was military grade, capable of rendering events with perfect clarity. What Vex'thil saw in the next 10 minutes rewrote his understanding of what constituted reasonable behavior in a predator. The first recording showed Eva playing in the station's external courtyard, a reinforced area designed to let researchers observe the surrounding ecosystem. She was singing to herself, stacking rocks into precarious towers with that intense focus children brought to meaningless tasks. From the tree line, something emerged. Vex'thil recognized it from the briefing files. A stalking drake, a 3-meter-tall predator with retractable claws and enough muscle to rip through duraplast. It moved with the patient confidence of an apex hunter approaching easy prey. Recker appeared between the drake and Eva so fast the camera almost missed it. One moment he was sleeping in the sun 5 meters away. The next, he was a furry missile of pure aggression. The drake outweighed the honey badger by a factor of 30. It had every physical advantage. Reach, mass, specialized killing tools. None of it mattered. Recker hit the drake like a natural disaster. He went for the face first, claws and teeth shredding soft tissue with surgical precision. The drake tried to shake him off, but the honey badger's loose skin made it impossible to get a solid grip. When the drake tried to bite down, Recker twisted, latched onto the creature's throat, and held on. The fight lasted 40 seconds. The drake fled, bleeding from a dozen wounds, making sounds of pure panic. Recker trotted back to Eva, who had not stopped stacking rocks. She patted his head absently. "Good boy, Recker." The second recording showed a different predator. This one a tunnel raptor that had somehow bypassed the perimeter sensors and emerged inside the station's storage area while Eva was getting a snack. Lyra was elsewhere, doing research. Eva was alone. The raptor was smaller than the drake, but faster, built for quick kills in confined spaces. It saw Eva, saw easy meat, and attacked. Recker came through a ventilation shaft like a guided missile. This fight was shorter, more brutal. The raptor tried to use its speed, tried to circle, tried to find an opening. Recker gave it none. He moved like violence itself, all claws and teeth and complete disregard for his own safety. When the raptor tried to bite him, he bit back harder. When it raked him with its claws, he ignored the wounds and went for the eyes. The raptor retreated through the same vent it had entered, leaving a blood trail and the scent of fear. Eva finished making her sandwich, offered half to Recker, and went back to her room. The third recording was the one that made Vex'thil understand why the Council had really sent them. A pack of 6 thornback raiders, intelligent enough to coordinate tactics and vicious enough to take down armored prey, had breached the station's outer defenses during a storm. They split up, searching for the soft. Targets their instincts promised were inside. 2 of them found Eva's room while she slept. Recker was waiting. The first raider died so fast Vex'thil had to slow the playback to see what happened. Throat rip, arterial spray, body collapsing. The second raider hesitated, which was its fatal mistake. Recker was already moving, already inside its guard, already tearing. The sounds from Eva's room brought the other 4 raiders running. They found their packmates dying and a small furry demon standing over a sleeping human child who had not even woken up despite the carnage happening 2 meters from her bed. The raiders were smart enough to recognize a losing proposition. They fled. Recker cleaned himself, climbed into Eva's bed, and went to sleep. In the present, Vex'thil turned off the playback. His security team stood in stunned silence. Even Kresh, who prided himself on his composure, looked like he had just been forced to reconsider fundamental truths about the universe. "So you see," Lyra said quietly, "Eva is not unprotected. She has the best protection Earth could provide, born from millions of years of evolution that prioritized one single trait, being too tough to kill and too mean to quit." "I see," Vex'thil said slowly. "Doctor, I must ask, if that creature is so effective, why does the Council believe you need additional security?" "Because Recker can handle local predators. He can handle anything that operates on instinct and aggression. But our intelligence suggests the threats coming are not local, and they do not operate on instinct." She met his eyes. "They are pirates, mercenaries, sapient beings with weapons and tactics. Recker is fearless, but he is not bulletproof." "Understood." Vex'thil pulled up the station's defensive grid, already making calculations. "We will establish a perimeter, upgrade your sensors, and rotate shifts to ensure 24-hour coverage. But doctor, I must admit something." "Yes?" "I have protected generals, diplomats, and heads of state. This is the first time I have been assigned to protect someone who already has a bodyguard more effective than my entire team." Lyra laughed, a sound like breaking tension. "Consider yourselves backup." That night, as Vex'thil ran simulations and planned defensive strategies, he received a message on his secure channel. It was from Felnara, the Sistian ambassador who had briefed him. "I assume you have met the honey badger." "Yes, and I understand now why you were amused during our initial briefing. You knew exactly what we would find." "I did. Commander, a piece of advice from someone who has studied humans for 3 decades. They are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest or the most intelligent. But they have a unique gift for finding the most ridiculous solution to any problem and then making it work through sheer stubborn determination. A 4-year-old girl protected by a 30-kilogram mammal on a death world should not survive, and yet she thrives." "Exactly. Remember that, Commander. When the threats come, and they will come, remember that humans specialize in turning impossible situations into mere improbabilities. And they have a particular talent for choosing allies who share that philosophy. The message ended. Vex'thil stood at the observation window, watching Tempest 9's twin moons rise over the violent jungle. Somewhere in the station, Eva was probably asleep, curled up with the galaxy's most unlikely guardian. He pulled up the mission timeline. The intelligence suggested the first attack would come within 2 weeks. For the first time since accepting this assignment, Commander Vex'thil found himself almost looking forward to it. He had spent his entire career learning about tactics, strategy, and the art of warfare. Now he was going to learn what happened when someone was dumb enough to threaten a human child being guarded by a creature that evolution had designed to be unkillable and had forgotten to teach the meaning of retreat. The next 2 weeks would be, he suspected, extremely educational. The attack came on the 13th day, which Vex'thil's tactical computer had predicted with 73% accuracy. What the computer had not predicted was the sheer audacity of the assault force. 12 armed mercenaries, mixed species, dropped from a stealth ship during the afternoon storm cycle when sensors were compromised by electromagnetic interference. Professional work, expensive work. Someone wanted Dr. Vance's research badly enough to hire competent killers instead of the usual frontier scum. Alarms screamed through the station. Vex'thil's team moved with practiced efficiency, establishing defensive positions and activating the upgraded security protocols they had spent 2 weeks installing. The mercenaries hit the outer perimeter hard, using shaped charges to breach the reinforced walls at 3 points simultaneously. Kresh, Seal Corridor 7, Patrol Units 3 and 5, converge on Breach Point Alpha. Vex'thil's forearms moved across holographic controls, routing power to shields and bringing automated defenses online. Dr. Vance, secure yourself and your daughter in the panic room, now. Lyra's voice came through the calm despite the chaos. Already moving. Eva, come on, sweetie, we need to go to the safe room. But Recker is still outside. Eva's voice, smaller and worried in a way that made Vex'thil's tactical mind note her as a potential complication. He will find us. He always does. Move, baby, now. Gunfire erupted from Corridor 7. Kresh's team had made contact. The tactical display showed 3 hostiles down, but 5 more pushing through with military precision. These were not random pirates. These were operators, trained and coordinated. Vex'thil pulled up the internal cameras, tracking the mercenary teams as they split up with practiced efficiency. Most headed toward the research lab, which was expected, but 2 broke off, moving with purpose toward the residential section, toward Eva's quarters. Kresh, we have hostiles moving on the residential wing. Divert Team 2 to intercept. Team 2 is pinned down at Breach Point Beta, Commander. These guys brought heavy weapons. We are talking military-grade plasma rifles, not frontier trash. Vex'thil cursed in 3 languages simultaneously. The residential wing had standard security, but nothing designed to stop determined professionals with advanced weaponry. He pulled up the camera feeds, watching as 2 mercenaries, a Krathan heavy weapons specialist and a Quellan infiltrator, advanced through the corridors with smooth efficiency. Then he remembered. Dr. Vance and Eva were heading to the panic room, but where was Recker? He cycled through the external cameras, searching, found nothing, switched to internal feeds, still nothing. The honey badger had vanished, which should have been reassuring, except that Vex'thil had learned over the past 2 weeks that when Recker disappeared, it usually meant something was about to have a very bad day. The 2 mercenaries reached the residential section. The Krathan carried a weapon that could punch through Duraplast, while the Quellan moved with the liquid grace of a species evolved for stealth killing. They communicated through hand signals, professional and precise. They checked Ava's room first, found it empty, moved to the panic room door. The Krathan pulled out a breaching device, the kind that turned reinforced doors into shrapnel. He attached it to the locking mechanism, primed it, and stepped back. Recker came through the ventilation shaft like a furry cannonball. Vex'thil watched the camera feed with the detached fascination of someone witnessing an event that should not be physically possible. The honey badger hit the Krathen at chest level with enough force to stagger a being that massed 200 kilograms. Claws designed to dig through concrete raked across the mercenary's face, shredding the tactical visor and the soft tissue beneath. The Krathen screamed, a sound that would probably haunt Vex'thil's dreams, and tried to bring his weapon around. Recker was already gone, already moving, already targeting the Quellan who was trying to draw a sidearm with appendages that suddenly seemed too slow, too clumsy. The infiltrator was fast. Recker was faster and infinitely angrier. The fight lasted maybe 15 seconds. Both mercenaries retreated, bleeding, weaponless, making sounds that transcended language barriers. Universal noises of pain and terror. Recker stood in front of the panic room door, fur matted with blood that was definitely not his own, making that sound, that impossible growling chainsaw noise that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to the prey animal lurking in every sapient brain. "Commander," Kresh's voice came through the comm, tight with stress. "Are you seeing this?" "Yes." "That animal just took down 2 professional operators in under 20 seconds. "Yes. With no weapons, no armor. Just what? Claws and teeth and pure spite." "That appears to be an accurate assessment, Lieutenant. I am going to need therapy after this mission. Get in line." The main assault force was faring better, pushing through toward the research lab, despite fierce resistance. Vex'thil made rapid calculations. His team was good, but they were outnumbered, and the mercenaries had come prepared for a serious fight. They would hold the lab, but not indefinitely. Then the tactical display showed something interesting. The mercenary leader, a scarred Drenthian wearing combat armor that cost more than Vex'thil's annual salary, had stopped advancing. He was watching something on his own display, and his body language suggested confusion rapidly transitioning to concern. "All units, fall back to rally point." The mercenary leader's voice came through on the frequency they were monitoring. "Mission parameters have changed. Primary objective is compromised. Secondary extraction protocol. Execute now." Vex'thil pulled up the feed the mercenary leader was watching. It was from one of their helmet cams, the Quellan infiltrator. The footage showed Recker, showed the carnage, showed a small Earth mammal that had just destroyed 2 trained killers with the casual efficiency of someone swatting insects. "What in the 7 hells is that?" the mercenary leader was saying. "Krenth, you said this was a soft target. You said it was a human child with minimal security." "It was," a voice, presumably Krenth, responded. "Intelligence showed standard research station defenses. Human, vulnerable, easy extraction. Does that look easy to you? That thing just tore through Vex and Quilla like they were made of paper. And according to the biometric data, it weighs maybe 30 kilos. What is it?" There was a pause. Then Krenth's voice, smaller now, uncertain. "Reports mentioned a pet, some kind of Earth animal. Intelligence flagged it as non-threat." "Non-threat? It just made 2 of my best operators run like scared younglings. We are military contractors, not suicide enthusiasts. Mission abort. Everyone out, now." Vex'thil watched through multiple camera feeds as the mercenary force executed a professional withdrawal, covering each other's retreat with suppressing fire, but clearly no longer interested in pressing the assault. Within minutes, they were gone, back to their stealth ship, leaving behind weapons, equipment, and apparently all their dignity. The station alarms wound down. Kresh's team began damage assessment, and Vex'thil made his way to the residential section, where he found Dr. Vance emerging from the panic room with Eva. Recker sat in the hallway, cleaning blood from his fur with the methodical patience of a cat. He looked up as they approached, yawned to display teeth that seemed designed by a sadistic engineer, and went back to grooming. Eva ran over and threw her arms around the honey badger. "You kept us safe, Recker. Good boy. Such a good boy." Lyra met Vex'thil's eyes. "Status? The assault force has withdrawn. My team sustained minor injuries, no fatalities. The attackers left behind 3 dead and 2 wounded. We took prisoners. He paused. Your bodyguard, however, appears to have single-handedly convinced a dozen professional mercenaries that this was a bad career choice. That sounds like Recker. Lyra knelt down, checking Eva for injuries with the automatic thoroughness of a parent. You okay, baby? I am fine, Mama. Recker was here the whole time. I told you he would find us. You did. Lyra looked at the honey badger, something complicated crossing her face. I never doubted him. Kresh arrived, looking like he had been through a meat grinder. His armor was scorched in 3 places, and one of his arms hung at an odd angle. But he was alive, and he stared at Recker with an expression that mixed respect, fear, and complete bewilderment. Commander, the prisoners are secured. They are remarkably eager to talk. Apparently, they want to file formal complaints about being hired under false pretenses. False pretenses? They claim their intelligence briefing significantly understated the, quote, absolute nightmare fuel defending this location. The Quellan infiltrator is particularly vocal. He keeps saying something about Earth animals being, quote, cosmically unfair, evolutionary cheating. Vex'thil looked at Recker, who had finished cleaning himself and was now demanding Eva scratch behind his ears. She complied, humming a song that sounded suspiciously like a lullaby about violence and vengeance. Human children were strange. Over the next 3 days, the station returned to normal operations. Repairs were made. Defenses were upgraded again, this time incorporating lessons learned from actual combat. The prisoners were transferred to council custody, where they would face charges for corporate espionage and attempted kidnapping. But what interested Vex'thil more was the effect the failed assault had on the broader criminal community. Word had spread, as it always did in the frontier regions. The story had grown with each retelling, acquiring that mythic quality that separated fact from legend. A human child, protected by a creature that defied all reason. An animal that should not exist, that evolution should have rejected as too aggressive, too fearless, too fundamentally contrary to survival instincts. And yet, there it was, sleeping in a child's bed, playing in the sun, and casually dismantling professional military operators who made the mistake of getting too close. The bounty on Dr. Vance's research remained. The strategic value of her work had not diminished. But the number of groups willing to actually attempt extraction dropped to 0. No one wanted to be the next cautionary tale. On the 4th day after the attack, Vex'thil found Eva in the observation lounge, watching the sunset, with Recker sprawled across her lap. The honey badger was snoring, a sound like rocks tumbling in a barrel. Eva was reading from a datapad, studying predator behavior patterns with the same intensity she brought to everything. Commander Vex, she said without looking up. Can I ask you something? Of course, Eva. Why do people think kids need protecting all the time? Mama says it is because we are small and do not have armor or weapons. But Recker is small too, and nobody messes with him. Vex'thil settled into a seat, considering the question with the seriousness it deserved. Your mama is correct that size and weapons matter. But I think there is more to it. People protect children because you represent potential. You are not yet what you will become. Protecting you means protecting all the possible futures you might create. That is a fancy way of saying we are weak. No. Weakness and vulnerability are not the same thing. You are vulnerable because you are still learning, still growing. But I have seen you face danger with calm acceptance. I have watched you comfort Recker after fights where he was injured defending you. That is not weakness. That is a different kind of strength. Eva looked up at him, her young face serious in the fading light. Recker gets scared sometimes, you know, after big fights. He acts tough, but I can feel him shaking. So I hold him and tell him it is okay to be scared as long as you do not let it stop you. And where did you learn that wisdom? From my papa, before he died. He said being brave does not mean not being afraid. It means being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. She stroked Recker's fur gently. Recker understands that. That is why we are friends. We are both scared a lot, but we do not let it win. Vex'thil felt something shift in his understanding, a perspective clicking into place that had been missing before. He had been viewing this mission as protecting a vulnerable child, but that was not quite right. He was bearing witness to something else, something that spoke to the fundamental nature of humanity and their bizarre ability to form bonds with creatures that should terrify them. Your mother told me that Recker bonded with you when you were very young. May I ask how that happened? I was learning to walk. I fell down a lot. Mama says I was crying because I was frustrated, and Recker came over and just sat with me. Did not try to fix it or make it better. Just sat there. When I stopped crying, I pulled his tail, which Mama says was very rude, but Recker did not get mad. He just looked at me like I was interesting instead of annoying. And that was it? You became friends? Not right away. It took time, but Recker kept sitting with me when I was sad, and I kept being nice to him even when he was grumpy, and eventually we figured out we liked each other. Mama says sometimes the best friendships are between people, or people and animals, who choose each other instead of being chosen by someone else. Recker's snoring changed pitch, and one eye opened slightly. He looked at Vex'thil with what might have been assessment, or might have been indigestion. It was hard to tell with honey badgers. Then he closed his eye again and returned to sleep. The next morning, Vex'thil called a meeting with his security team. They assembled in the command center, still bearing the marks of recent combat, but standing tall and professional. I want to address something, he began. When we arrived at this station, many of us, myself included, believed we were being assigned to protect an inexperienced researcher and her vulnerable child from threats they could not handle alone. I want to formally acknowledge that assessment was incomplete. Kresh shifted slightly, his injured arm now in a regeneration brace. Commander, Dr. Vance is not inexperienced. She is a veteran of frontier research who has survived on death worlds by understanding predator behavior better than most military strategists understand combat. Her daughter is not simply vulnerable. She is being raised in an environment that most species would consider child abuse, and she is thriving because she has been taught to coexist with danger rather than hide from it. He pulled up footage from the assault, freezing on an image of Recker mid-attack. And this creature, which we initially dismissed as an inadequate pet, is perhaps the most effective close-quarters combatant I have ever witnessed. Not because of size or strength, but because of complete absence of fear combined with tactical intelligence we still do not fully understand. Sir, one of the younger team members asked, are you saying we were not needed? No, I am saying we need to recalibrate our understanding of this mission. We are not here to save a helpless child from overwhelming danger. We are here to provide strategic defense against threats that operate beyond the scope of what one honey badger and one very brave little girl can handle alone. There is a difference. He looked around the room, meeting each warrior's eyes in turn. You have all performed admirably. You held against a superior force with advanced weapons and training. You secured this station against professional operators who have successfully completed dozens of similar missions. But I want you to remember something. When those mercenaries withdrew, it was not because we defeated them. It was because they saw what happened to their advance team and decided some contracts are not worth dying for. The honey badger scared off trained mercenaries, Kresh said slowly, as if testing the words for absurdity. That should not be possible. Many things humans do should not be possible, Vex'thil replied. They survive in environments that would kill most species. They form emotional bonds with predators. They bring their young to death worlds and somehow make it work. Understanding why requires accepting that human psychology operates on different principles than most sapient species. He gestured to the frozen image of Recker. This animal has a brain the size of a walnut. It should not be capable of the tactical thinking we witnessed. But Earth is a death world, and death worlds produce survivors who learn to punch above their weight class or die trying. Recker's species survived by being too tough to kill and too aggressive to ignore. And somehow, impossibly, this particular representative of that species formed a bond with a human child and extended that survival instinct to include her. "So what do we do now?" another team member asked. "We continue our mission, but we do it with proper respect for what we are actually protecting, not a helpless child, but a future xenobiologist who is learning predator behavior from the inside out. Not an inadequate pet, but a combat asset that happens to eat treats and enjoy belly rubs. And not a naive researcher, but a mother who understands risk assessment better than most military planners." Kresh made that clicking sound that indicated understanding. "We are the backup plan." "Exactly. And there is no shame in that. Every good strategy includes redundancy. We provide capabilities they lack: long-range detection, strategic planning, defense against coordinated assaults. But we should not make the mistake of thinking they are helpless without us." The meeting ended. The team returned to their duties with renewed focus, and Vex'thil filed his official report to the council, carefully documenting what had actually occurred during the assault. 2 weeks later, he received a response. Ambassador Felnara's hologram appeared in his office, and she was definitely smiling. "Commander, I have read your report. It is quite entertaining." "It is accurate, Ambassador. I do not doubt it. I am calling to inform you that your mission parameters have been extended. The Council has decided that Dr. Vance's research requires continued protection, and your team has proven, shall we say, uniquely qualified." "How long?" 6 months initially. Possibly longer, depending on how the strategic situation develops. The failed assault sent ripples through the criminal networks. Several major players have decided that frontier research stations are no longer viable targets, which is having interesting effects on scientific operations across 3 sectors. Vex'thil looked at the data flowing across his screens, tracking weather patterns and predator movements on Tempest 9. The honey badger is being credited with improving council security policy, in a manner of speaking. More accurately, the willingness of humans to pair their vulnerable offspring with Earth's most belligerent mammals is causing reassessment of what constitutes adequate deterrence. There is talk of establishing a formal study on human-animal bonding and its applications to security work. That sounds like a recipe for chaos. Perhaps. Or perhaps it is exactly the kind of creative thinking the Council needs. Felnara's expression became more serious. "Commander, I want you to understand something. This mission was not just about protecting Dr. Vance and her daughter. It was about testing whether Council security forces could effectively work alongside human operational philosophy. Your success suggests the answer is yes, but it requires adaptation and open-mindedness. I understand. I hope you do, because humanity is applying for full Council membership next cycle. If they are accepted, there will be many more missions like this one, many more situations where our protocols collide with their, shall we call it, aggressive pragmatism. We need commanders who can navigate that difference." The hologram faded, leaving Vex'thil alone with his thoughts. Through the window, he could see Eva playing in the courtyard, building something elaborate out of scavenged materials. Recker lounged nearby, looking lazy and harmless right up until a maintenance drone got too close. Then the honey badger's head came up, and the drone's operator wisely decided it needed to be somewhere else immediately. A human child and an Earth predator, coexisting on a death world, protected by alien warriors who had learned to appreciate what they could not fully understand. It was absurd. It was inefficient. It violated approximately 17 different safety protocols. It was, Vex'thil admitted, also working perfectly. He returned to his reports, noting resource requirements and scheduling maintenance. Outside, Eva's laughter drifted through the filtered air, mixing with the distant sounds of Tempest 9's violent ecosystem. 6 more months. Plenty of time to write a comprehensive guide on what he had learned. He was already composing the title in his mind. Operational considerations when working with human protective instincts, or why you should never threaten something. A honey badger has decided to adopt. It would not fit on a standard report cover, but accuracy was more important than brevity. Behind him, his tactical computer pinged with new intelligence. 3 more groups had inquired about contracts targeting frontier research stations. All 3 had withdrawn their bids after reviewing available data on current security arrangements. Vex'thil allowed himself a small smile. Deterrence through reputation. It was an old strategy, effective when properly implemented. And nothing implemented it quite like a 30-kilogram mammal that evolution had forgotten to teach the meaning of surrender. The sun set over Tempest 9, painting the sky in shades of amber and crimson. In the station, Eva finished her homework, ate dinner with her mother, and got ready for bed. Recker followed her through the routine, patient and protective, a living reminder that sometimes the best defense was not the strongest or the smartest. Sometimes it was just the one too stubborn to quit and too mean to lose. And in the galaxy's complex web of threats and protections, alliances and conflicts, that made all the difference.